you kind of talked about the decline a little bit and what you were feeling. What numbers were you looking at every day that started to scare the crap out of you?
I mean, the biggest thing that would scare me was gross revenue. Like if we didn't do at least 90, it was a disaster in my opinion. And then I started seeing these situations where I was like, man, we're not getting good revenue and we're somehow booked solid, which was a situation where like I didn't have enough people in the building working, and I also had not enough revenue. And I was like, these people who seem like amazing opportunities and they're huge corporate accounts and like I have to sign NDAs because it's movies and whatever, they're also not paying enough for what I built. And a lot of that is my fault. Like I didn't own the building, so I had a very high lease payment of almost 12 grand. I had employees that were paid like, I guess, too well. And then I had a situation where I would be shopped against people that were anywhere in the country, as long as it could ship in a day or two to a certain location. So maybe my client base was part of the problem. Maybe I should have been built on a different, smaller type of business that I would have had a healthier margin on. But just seeing those revenues decline while simultaneously my cost had gone up just started scaring the hell out of me like a year ago.
Was there no way to, and this is all hindsight, right? Because I'm sure there's an emotional aspect of being either tired or, you know, maybe even just wanting a switch, which we can get into. That'd be interesting too. But was there no way to right size it? Because I could hear someone listening saying, well, what, you know, could you charge more and or not take on certain jobs and or cut the team, or like, how did you think about those?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely things that there could have been ideas that could have been implemented a year and a half ago or a year ago that would have fixed it. But I was doing things like cutting labor and taking on, you know, additional like work basically. So a lot of it ended up following on the smaller team, just working more than they ever had. And then besides that, we did like a big marketing push, like maybe 18 months ago or 20 months ago. And we saw really bad returns on it. So we were spending money on ads, spending money on help people making content, pushing stuff out. And we would get views and we would get likes and shares. And we would get 2 or 3 kind of vague leads off of like an ad on a given day or two. But we didn't have like an obvious large ROI from our ad spend. So we would see that like, okay, we spent $3,000 this month on ads. We brought in $8,000 in new customers. Our existing customers might say they liked our ad, but they're already our customer. And with our margins being around like maybe 40% gross margin on a lot of items, that $3,000 spend on that $8,000 made it barely worth it. And so that kind of was a situation where like, I guess I just couldn't figure out the thing to flip the business. Some of my old tricks were just not working anymore. Before we actually did really well with like Facebook, Instagram ads. We would do things that were inside of Google search and they converted a lot better years ago. And they just did not convert the same. And that was part of our problem with finding new customers. Also, we weren't built for print on demand. So we would get calls from amazing customers that would be paying us a lot, but we didn't have a room full of core needs. We didn't have like a DTF solution in place to do high volume print on demand. And so when we would tell them we can screen print inventory and then stay on top of your inventory and fulfill it and do all of the fulfillment that way, they just lost interest because they had no risk option.
I'll go to Printify, I'll go to Mad Engine, I'll go to Printful, I'll go to one of these that'll do it for $9 a shirt, right? Like, why would you? You can't blame them, right?
No, you can't blame them at all.
When you talk about your marketing or your sales engine, did you have a pretty developed sales team that was doing like outbound or customer success or like account managers, or what did the sales org actually look like?
Me and Joni. It's been me and Joni for 12 years.
If you were to look back, would that be something you would have changed now that you see it?
I tried to change it like 7 times. And the problem that I kept seeing was there was a few people that we had at different years who were essentially really good receptionists. So they would they would be able to talk about t-shirts. They'd be able to answer the phone. They could write up an order if it was a basic order. Like they could do that kind of stuff. But I either lost them because they got better pay at a different place that I really couldn't afford, or they were basically nothing but someone who answered phones. So there was no outside sales engine that was based on humans at all. It was always like my marketing brought in leads and then we handled leads. And that was definitely something that I did not succeed at. Like I was not good at hiring salespeople. The kind of salespeople I wanted on my team were going to cost, $60,000 to $80,000 a year, which I never wanted to take the gamble on because I kind of didn't believe that they would bring in like 4 to 5x their salary. And I figured that they needed to bring in 4 to 5x their salary to even be justified as an employee. So part of it was risk aversion, and then part of it was not quite understanding how to build an outside sales team that wasn't just me talking someone into doing something for the next 4 hours. Like I would try to implement something like, okay, we're reaching out to these types of businesses, and they would just kind of waste a few days and get like no conversions. And I guess I just didn't know what an answer was. So I would revert back to my marketing that at least gave us leads.
It's interesting because our industry, I think, has this issue everywhere where the owners are usually the salesperson and they're usually the ones responsible for drumming up business, but we're not formally trained in sales, nor are we able to do it for 40 hours a week. We're just hoping our reputation, word of mouth, and everything we can take at us, we can just process. And I feel like people listening to this are going to be able to relate and say, yeah, I'm stuck here. What advice would you give shops that are in this position, that are hearing this and saying that are saying like, I am where Cole is. I'm not brave enough to speak up, but I am where he's at right now. What advice would you give them to start implementing like tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, two of my guys actually started their own shop, and basically, they're just like eating up a lot of our print only work because like it was a great opportunity if you didn't have the infrastructure we had. And what I've been telling him is like, do not focus on growth, focus on sales, because you're in a better position doing as much sales as humanly possible. And you be the company that outsources for 80 cents per hit. Because if you start growing that back end, you better have an insane amount of sales happening. And then if you have a small downturn, you're going to be eating all the risk. Whereas these people that are being essentially brokers, or they're small shops plus brokering, they're killing it because they have a bad month and they make $0. A large print shop with large overhead has a bad month and they make negative $20,000. So it's a different way to grow. But I feel like that model of focusing on the sales exclusively is a lot safer. And so, it depends on how big your shop is currently. But if I had been more hardcore about sales years ago before even expanding, and I had just decided I'm the type of company like a Fresh Prints, for example, where I can have my location, but I'm going to find trusted print shops that I partner with and just feed them work, dump the blanks to them, have a back-end portal where they can see all the artwork, see all the art files, and then they're just going to white label ship it out. I could have had a much healthier business. I mean, you fill your own doors first and then you start shipping it out, I think.
I think this is why companies like M&R and Rock are probably a little scared, right? Because Campus Ink is not buying new autos anymore.
Yeah. Well, imagine how scary it is to sell manuals. That's like really.
Yeah, I don't think, but it's like, I'm not buying new presses right now. I will sub out work first. Right. But 4 years ago, there was this ego check of, no, we're going to keep it all in house. We're going to get the biggest, nicest presses. We're going to get beautiful spaces. And now we're all staring at it like, we don't want to touch that, So I think what you said there is don't be afraid to sub it out and focus on sales first.